time to check in with our focus group, the jury. They've been keeping a track of the, well, week-by-week campaigning in this election contest. We chose the seat of Reid in Sydney's inner west for this focus group early in the campaign, and for good reason, because it turns out this is where the two leaders have been the most. It's in the inner west of Sydney, as you can see. The margin for the Liberals, 4.7%. But Craig Laundy, the sitting member, not recontesting, makes it a tough one for the Liberals to hold. Both Scott Morrison and Bill Shorten were back there in Reid again today. So let's check in with our focus group, but starting with their thoughts on the past week of campaigning.
Our new first home loan deposit scheme, I announced today, will enable first home owners to buy their home with a deposit of down to 5%. This will make a big difference, cutting the time taken to save for a deposit by at least half and more.
So what about that announcement?
He sounded genuine.
That sounds genuine, that presentation.
It sounded and looked genuine. It wasn't... it wasn't like you see the body language on other matters, it was fake, but this one was real.
And I tend to believe Scott Morrison because he knows his figures.
I think he's genuine. I think he's good with his maths, but I think he's doing it for his mates at the banks.
Yeah, me too.
Because what this means is it means that the home buyers will have to fork out 95% of the loan.
This second piece is a pitch on the same day from Shorten.
Vote Labor for action on climate change. Vote Labor for cheaper childcare. Vote Labor for better schools, hospitals, TAFEs and universities.
I can't believe some of his promises that this guy...
You know the two aliens in The Simpsons and they dress up as Bill Clinton and Al Gore and they're holding hands in public? That's what that reminds me of. He looks he looks unnatural going,
very
you know,
campaign-like.
Very campaign.
Yeah.
A lot of headline promises.
It's only promise, but
it gives me some hope of change.
So I
want some change.
Attention, this is Morrison and the egging.
The CWA could give her a really good idea about what you're supposed to do with eggs, in terms of baking or something like that. Well, pardon the pun, but I don't want to over-egg this thing.
I think it's pathetic.
It's not the way to behave.
They're so disrespectful,
no
matter who he is.
But he was a good sport.
it's gone in his favour. Yeah, it's worked in his favour, big time.
It's worked in his favour.
Because if he had responded negatively...
So how did he respond?
Imagine.
He just shrugged it off.
Yeah.
He shrugged it off?
Yeah, he shrugged it. And they didn't make a big deal out of it.
He did say, he said, this is unacceptable behaviour and we won't have this.
He didn't show a bad reaction.
Right.
In fact, he showed quite a positive, you know, like being able to make jokes about it, that's great, you know, that is a good thing.
Let's play, I suppose, a personality, you know, not a similar, but a parallel piece, which I think was the weekend.
Who do some of these lazy people think they are? That they play gotcha shit about your life story. Mum would want me to say to older women in Australia that just because you got grey hair, just because you didn't go to a special private school, just because you don't go to the right clubs, just because you're not part of some backslapping boys club, doesn't mean you should give up.
I felt raw emotion come from him.
Yes.
Personal raw emotion.
Yeah.
No, it's not emotional.
Made me feel I'm going to vote for him straight away.
Did it?
No, I don't vote for him.
Really?
Seriously.
That's it.
He touched my heart.
End of story.
Your heart a bit.
Yeah, look, the tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
No way.
That's for real.
That's real.
It's funny, the more that we see these sort of things happening over the weeks, you know, the more we get to see a side of them where they're not scripted and, you know, I'm not saying this is not scripted, but these little moments where they behave like normal humans.
People and down to earth.
And that's what you want to see, and that's something that they forget every friggin' election.
That was last week.
They have to show us these scripted people that they're not real, they're not relatable. We know that's not what they're like, and yet they still put it towards us. But you know, seeing things where they actually talk freely and are able to crack jokes and can cry, you know, about the death of their parents, like. That's what you want to see, is just know that they're human.
Bit of authenticity. Well, what about the carefully crafted policies? How many of these have hit the target mark? What details on the policy front has been picked up at this stage? Let's take a look.
In all of the discussions, I don't know that too many people actually know what the plan is. Like I know if I knew it, I don't know it anymore. If I knew what they were planning to do for climate change, I don't know. But they've kept that word very central because they know it's going to attract people's attention. But at what time are you actually going to share the plan?
If we're getting protesters swinging off the Harbour Bridge...
That's green stuff, isn't it? That's
yeah, but it's about climate change. They're protesting. Yeah. So then we're not clear about what their plan is. So
but what we're clear about
what
is
they're protesting.
We haven't heard from Bill Shorten and the Labor Party about their decision on the Adani coal mine.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison came up with this thing on Sunday.
Yeah.
That especially is good for the new generation, you know, our kids. 5% deposit for a home loan.
And then...
Wow.
So you do think that's a legitimate offer? You do think that's...
It says here, if you're under 125,000, which is, oh, that's a good money, 125,000.
Sure.
This generation, especially these days, they can't save deposit.
I still like the benefits that, you know, Labours are promising and how they're... Labour is also like matching everything that Liberals are promising, so it's like giving.
Now, what about that, David did just mention, matching thing? Like one side promises something, then what happens?
Labour
the
matches.
other one wants... Yeah, Labor did it this way.
On everything, or does it go both ways?
No, it only goes Labour way. Labour will only match. Well, that's how I feel. Labour just match. Liberals are just saying, you know, how you going to... How's this all going to cost? It's going to cost the taxpayers.
One of the reasons why sort of leaning a little bit towards Labor is their promise to improve on medical employees and improving on medical emergency departments to reduce on waiting times.
The Prime Minister mentioned about he's going to cut down on the energy rate. He promised. That's one of his things. So we're looking forward for that. I mean, you know, our bill, it comes like almost $600. It's crazy.
Right. I would have to say.
The Liberals will be more transparent as to why they're not matching Labor's childcare policy of that increased subsidy. I think for many Australians, especially young families or family with children, I think just increasing that subsidy would be a great benefit to our household budget. An extra $1,600 in my pocket is an extra $1,600 in my pocket.
Because I actually just want equality for all, because the attack ads have said, you know, Liberal is only looking after the top end. I don't know where I fit in the scheme of top end versus bottom end. I'm a teacher, but I'm not, you know, taking home millions. But am I going to be adversely affected because I'm not?
Because you're not on welfare?
Or I'm not a pensioner and I don't have children in childcare. So what about the average person who isn't benefiting from all of these things? I want some equality for everybody.
What about the campaign tactics we've seen throughout the last 5 weeks? The dirty tricks, the pointed barbs, the attack ads, which have mercifully come to an end with the advertising blackout last night. Let's see how they've had an effect.
It's getting very nasty.
As you go down to 4 weeks, it's becoming more, you know, just attacking, and, you know, talking about someone's dead murderer, aching people. It's just becoming so vicious.
Do not vote Labor because you don't want to see a Muslim next door neighbour next to you.
I saw it in the news today.
Yeah.
Right, so that was in one of the seats. There was
someone in Cairns, near Cairns.
One of the candidates running for Labor had her car exhaust pipe stuffed with something.
Yes.
Which potentially could kill someone.
Australia is not a third world country to do such things nasty like that.
I just felt like they're just, you know, punching each other, but not really... They're punching each other, but they're not really giving us any benefit, like not giving any comfort.
It's no longer trying to entice you to vote for either party. Because what you see in the news is just like two kids trying to throw punches to each other.
aggravating and frustrating.
Yeah.
That's how you take the campaign.
Oh, yeah. Mainly, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And why is it aggravating and frustrating?
Things like the attack ads, I'm so sick of hearing them bitching. It's all they're doing is bitching and bitching, and I'm sorry, but it's just, oh my gosh. Stop using a chance to talk good about yourself like as a chance to negatively attack someone else. Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get it, but I don't.
Sure, plenty would agree. So, at the end of this campaign, what is this group? Swinging voters, you can tell they're leaning one way or another, but have they made up their minds which way they're going to vote? Let's have a look.
I think Labor, what they're offering is quite the change.
The change Australia
For the
needs.
people.
Whoa.
Campaign manager.
Undecided, yeah.
Really?
Undecided, maybe Labor.
Martha, sorry, Martha, where are you this week? Which way are you voting?
Continue with the Liberals National Party.
Undecided, leaning towards Liberal still.
Right.
Still undecided.
Well, you've got to decide soon.
I know.
Yeah.
I might flip a coin.
This election, I've definitely been on the fence the whole time. It's just, I'm so over it. How do I put it? I guess I'm just...
Has Labor done something or something happened in the last week?
Bill Shorten's just, you know, he showed us a different side of him last week, but he's still, I know he's still the same person. He's still the the union loving person that I guess Labor have always been, but I can't take him seriously.
Can Liberal promise that Tony Abbott and Peter Dutton won't come back and challenge the leadership? I'm going to vote for Greens.
What?
Yes. Because...
Wait, sorry, you were going to... 2 weeks ago it was Labor.
Yeah.
Then you said last week Liberal.
Yeah.
And are you seriously saying you're going to vote Green?
Yeah.
We'll see. What's going on there?
Oh, look, I mean, just the last week, I felt that both parties are just, you know, it seems like they're just attacking each other. And, I mean, nothing comes positive out of both parties' mouth. And, look, I'm still kind of leaning towards Labor, which is why Greens would be my vote, because Greens have a preference deal with Labor. And I felt that if I voted Greens, I can, I feel more better about myself. Even though that, look, we'll give it a try. I mean, Greens not going to win Reid, but at least the Green preference vote will go to Labor, which is where I'm leaning towards anyway.
Is what Labor is telling me too good to be true?
You've been Liberal 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But you're undecided?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still.
So you're sort of.
I'm still interested in the conversation and the promise.
Are you still labouring?
Well, 80%, that's what
80, it's gone down.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm undecided Labor.
So you've softened a bit off Labor by the sound of it.
Slightly.
So the,
I don't know.
So the
I'm in
Liberals
between.
might get you. Possible.
It's there, it's possible.
Yeah. I can't wait till Saturday.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
For the sausage
Just
sizzle.
because they're ripping each other apart. Yeah. See who's going to win.
All right, well, let's bring in our moderator that's been handling all of this through the campaign. Jerry Barone joins us once again.
Hi.
Jerry, look, really interesting at the end. Let's go to the end there, right? I'm sure some people out there might be throwing stuff at the television going, can't you make up your mind? But it is revealing, isn't it, that what happens in these last couple of days can really matter with a lot of voters.
I think it absolutely matters. And the fascinating thing about this group of people is that they are suffering fatigue from the election, but they are getting more involved. And that quote, I can't wait, is so interesting because they can't wait. They do care. I think they sense there is quite a lot at stake in this election. And they are listening intently, despite their fatigue at the attack ads. They're listening at what's going on. I think it's tightened. The race has tightened.
So where did you finish up with the 8? Who was going which way?
We finished up at the 8. I think we finished very close. There has been some switching. The fellow there, he said he's going to go Green. I don't believe it for a moment. I'm going to phone him on Monday and ask him, as I will all of them. We've agreed. There has been a bit of switching. There was some, as you saw, there were some Labor voters considering more Liberal, and there were some Liberal voters listening to Labor. So I do believe the race has tightened, and people are I know the stereotype of a lot of Australians is that they don't care about voting and we're forced to. But these people sense there's a lot at stake. They can feel pressure on their livelihoods. And although they say it's just attack ads, they're clever people. They've taken the essence out of it. They understand that the Liberals and Morrison stand for pragmatism. Maybe with a bit of a hard edge.
Yeah.
Maybe with a bit of a hard edge, and they go, oh, but, are they going to be rough? But they get it. It's pragmatism, it's facts, it's costs, it's figures. And they understand that on the other side, it's promises and hope and maybe false promises. So you've got pragmatism versus promises. And my sense that the reason the race has tightened is because Australians are, I wouldn't say inherently conservative, but we're an inherently quite sensible bunch. I think that's what it is. And they want to keep what they've got. With pressure on prices, electricity prices, health, we don't want to see our lifestyle deteriorate. And that's why they're thinking, well, is it the pragmatism of looking after this economy that wins, though it might be a bit tough, or is it the promises and getting a little bit of money? So that's why they're on a knife edge. It's a real choice. It's
and the other thing that struck me too was they're obviously drawn to policies that affect their hip pocket. Scott Morrison's first home buyer thing clearly struck a chord.
It did.
The
It certainly did.
childcare offering from Labor's struck a chord with those who want it. But authenticity is the other thing they're really drawn to. We saw that particularly with the Bill Shorten moment where he was quite teary talking about his mum. They were clearly strongly attracted to that moment of authenticity.
They were, and I think given the leadership spills over the last several years, the desire for authenticity and a real leader, someone who simply means what they say in a measured way, I think it's actually very strong. They did like that piece of authenticity, but they also liked the piece. They felt that when Morrison was speaking about the first home buyers, they felt that was rather unscripted and authentic. They thought, oh yeah, it's a campaign pitch, but he's just talking about it as if he was the Treasurer and it was something that needed to be done. So yes, even in this last week of the fatigue, they respond to some reality in our leaders, authenticity. One thing I did think was interesting, which is not authentic, is I think they're clever people. They're actually clever voters. They're listening, and I think they detect a false choice in this election, the false choice between, the big end of town and the disadvantaged. The teacher at the end, she said, well, what am I? I'm in the middle. And I think they feel that this dichotomy between rich and poor is not quite how we live in Australia now. We live more in the middle. So that false choice, I think, which of course I know that, it's been accused that Labor are putting up the class warfare and the other side aren't. But I think they sense that they want someone who's measured, who will appeal to the broad middle. The broad middle, and that's the authenticity they want. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Jerry, we've got to go. Look, thank you so much for your work through the campaign. It's been fascinating to see all of this, and I would like to hear after the election which way they've all gone. Thanks so much for that. It has been well worth it looking at what's happening there in Reid.